The following account has been reconstructed from fragmentary records discovered in the basement archives of the Laramie County Historical Society in 1954, nearly 64 years after the events in question transpired in the remote settlement of Millbrook, Wyoming. These documents, found sealed within a deteriorating leather portfolio bearing the territorial seal, include scattered diary entries, incomplete official reports, and correspondence between territorial authorities that collectively chronicle a phenomenon that defied rational explanation. The papers describe events that occurred during the night of October 13, 1890, when an entire community experienced a collective loss of memory that left no witnesses to whatever transpired during those missing hours. Dr. Samuel Morrison, the territorial physician assigned to investigate the incident, arrived in Millbrook on October 20, 1890, to find a population of 347 residents who displayed no memory of the events that had occurred 1 week earlier. His initial medical report, submitted to the Wyoming territorial government, describes a community suffering from what appeared to be selective amnesia affecting every man, woman, and child within the settlement's boundaries. The physician's systematic examination of the townspeople revealed no evidence of physical trauma, disease, or intoxication that might account for their collective memory loss. Millbrook, established in 1882 as a supply station for the Union Pacific Railroad, served the surrounding cattle ranches and mining operations that had drawn settlers to this remote corner of southeastern Wyoming territory. The town's population consisted primarily of railroad workers, ranchers, merchants, and their families, representing a typical frontier community that had developed around the economic opportunities provided by westward expansion. The settlement's isolation, located nearly 40 miles from the nearest neighboring town, made it largely self-sufficient and closely knit, with residents who knew each other's daily routines and activities intimately. The first indication that something unusual had occurred emerged on the morning of October 14th. When the eastbound Union Pacific train arrived at Millbrook Station to find the platform deserted and the depot closed despite the scheduled 6:30 a.m. arrival. The train's conductor, James Whitfield, documented his unsuccessful attempts to locate station personnel or any townspeople who might explain the absence of the usual morning activity. His report describes a settlement that appeared normal in every respect except for the complete absence of human activity during what should have been the busiest hour of the community's daily routine. When residents finally began to appear throughout the morning of October 14th, their behavior suggested confusion and disorientation that extended beyond simple oversleeping or neglect of duties. Multiple witnesses described townspeople emerging from their homes with expressions of bewilderment, as if awakening from unusually deep sleep with no memory of the previous evening's activities. The collective nature of this disorientation became apparent as residents attempted to reconstruct the events of October 13th, only to discover that none of them possessed any recollection of what had transpired after approximately 7 p.m. the previous evening. The town's official records, maintained by Mayor Thomas Brennan, revealed a complete absence of documentation for the evening hours of October 13th, despite the mayor's typically meticulous attention to administrative duties. His personal diary, which had been maintained daily for over 15 years, contained no entry for October 13th, with the notation for October 12th followed immediately by confused observations written on October 14th, expressing his inability to account for the missing time. The mayor's bewilderment reflected the collective experience of a community that had somehow lost 12 hours of shared existence. Dr. Morrison's interviews with individual residents revealed consistent patterns of memory loss that affected the entire population regardless of age, occupation, or social status. Children as young as 5 years old and elderly residents approaching 90 all described the same phenomenon: clear recollection of daily activities until early evening on October 13th, followed by awakening on the morning of October 14th, with no memory of the intervening hours. The uniformity of this experience across the entire population suggested a cause that transcended individual medical or psychological factors. The physical evidence within Millbrook provided few clues regarding what might have occurred during the missing hours, as the town appeared essentially unchanged from its condition on the evening of October 13th. Buildings remained intact, livestock were properly secured, and personal belongings showed no signs of disturbance or theft. However, careful examination revealed subtle anomalies that suggested some form of activity had taken place. Doors that residents remembered locking were found unlocked. Furniture in several homes had been rearranged in ways that no one could explain, and the town's church bell had been rung at some point during the night, though no one recalled hearing it or had reason to sound it. The territorial authorities' response to reports of the Millbrook incident reflected both skepticism and concern about the implications of an entire community experiencing simultaneous memory loss. Initial communications between local officials and the territorial capital dismissed the reports as exaggeration or mass hysteria. Yet the consistency and credibility of multiple independent witnesses eventually prompted the dispatch of Dr. Morrison to conduct a formal investigation. His preliminary findings, transmitted by telegraph to Cheyenne on October 22nd, confirmed the reality of the phenomenon while acknowledging the absence of any rational explanation for the collective amnesia. The broader implications of the Millbrook incident became apparent as news of the mysterious memory loss spread throughout the territory, raising questions about the reliability of witness testimony and the nature of human consciousness itself. Dr. Morrison's investigation attracted attention from medical professionals, territorial officials, and newspaper correspondents who recognized that the case represented something unprecedented in documented American frontier history. The physicians' growing conviction that the incident involved forces beyond conventional medical understanding set the stage for a more comprehensive investigation that would reveal even more disturbing aspects of the mystery that had befallen this remote Wyoming settlement. Dr. Morrison's systematic examination of Millbrook's residents during the final week of October 1890 revealed the extraordinary consistency of their shared amnesia, with each individual describing identical patterns of memory loss that defied conventional medical explanation. His detailed interviews, conducted with over 200 townspeople, documented the precise moment when collective memory ceased on October 13th at approximately 7 p.m., followed by a complete void until awakening on October 14th with no recollection of the intervening 12 hours. The physician's medical training compelled him to seek rational explanations for the phenomenon, yet his systematic investigation yielded increasingly puzzling evidence that challenged fundamental assumptions about human consciousness and memory. The territorial physician's examination of the town's physical environment revealed subtle but persistent anomalies that suggested significant activity had occurred during the missing hours, despite the complete absence of human memory regarding these events. Dr. Morrison documented numerous instances of objects that had been moved or rearranged without any resident's knowledge or recollection, including furniture repositioned within homes, tools relocated in workshops, and livestock that had been moved between different pastures. These changes appeared purposeful rather than random, suggesting organized activity that had somehow been conducted without leaving any trace in human memory. The physician's interviews with Millbrook's children provided particularly disturbing insights into the nature of the collective amnesia, as young residents described dreams and fragmentary impressions that seemed to relate to the missing hours. Several children reported recurring nightmares involving walking while asleep and voices that spoke without sound, though they could provide no coherent account of these experiences. Dr. Morrison's notes suggest that the children's subconscious minds might have retained impressions that their conscious awareness had been unable to process or remember, indicating that the memory loss might have been selective rather than complete. The investigation of the town's animals revealed behavioral changes that correlated with the timing of the human memory loss, providing additional evidence that significant events had occurred during the missing hours. Dr. Morrison documented reports from multiple residents describing unusual agitation among horses, cattle, and domestic animals that had persisted for several days following October 13th. The animals' nervous behavior, including reluctance to enter certain areas of the town and persistent restlessness during evening hours, suggested that they had experienced something traumatic during the night in question, though their inability to communicate prevented determination of the specific cause. Dr. Morrison's examination of the town's church, where the bell had been rung at some point during the missing hours, revealed evidence of human activity that no resident could explain or remember. The church's interior showed signs of recent use, including candles that had been lit and extinguished, hymnals that had been removed from their usual locations, and the altar area that appeared to have been rearranged according to no recognizable pattern. The church's pastor, Reverend William Hayes, expressed profound distress at his inability to remember conducting any service or ceremony that might account for these changes. The physician's investigation of individual homes throughout Millbrook revealed a consistent pattern of subtle alterations that suggested systematic visitation during the missing hours. Dr. Morrison documented instances of personal belongings that had been examined and carefully replaced, food that had been consumed from pantries and kitchens, and beds that showed evidence of having been occupied by individuals other than their usual inhabitants. These intrusions appeared to have been conducted with remarkable care to avoid obvious disturbance, yet close examination revealed unmistakable evidence of unauthorized presence within private residences. The territorial physician's attempts to establish a timeline for the missing hours through examination of mechanical devices and natural phenomena yielded contradictory results that deepened the mystery surrounding October 13th. Clocks throughout the town had stopped at various times between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., yet showed no evidence of mechanical failure or tampering that might explain their simultaneous cessation. The town's weather station, maintained by the railroad depot, contained no meteorological recordings for the missing hours, despite the equipment's normal function before and after the incident. Dr. Morrison's correspondence with medical colleagues in Denver, Salt Lake City, and San Francisco revealed the unprecedented nature of the Millbrook case within documented medical literature. His detailed descriptions of the collective amnesia prompted responses that ranged from skepticism to fascination, yet none of his professional contacts could provide precedent or explanation for a phenomenon affecting an entire community simultaneously. The absence of comparable cases in medical literature left the physician without guidance for understanding or treating a condition that appeared to exist beyond the boundaries of contemporary medical knowledge. The investigation's most disturbing discovery emerged during Dr. Morrison's examination of the town's cemetery, where evidence suggested that graves had been disturbed during the missing hours, despite the complete absence of human memory regarding such activity. The physician documented subtle signs of excavation and replacement of soil at several burial sites, though the graves appeared to have been carefully restored to their original condition. The implications of this discovery, combined with the church's unexplained use and the systematic visitation of homes, suggested that whatever had occurred during the missing hours involved activities that transcended normal human behavior. As October drew to a close, Dr. Morrison's investigation had documented extensive evidence of organized activity during the missing hours, while failing to identify any rational explanation for the collective amnesia that prevented the townspeople from remembering their own participation in these events. His preliminary report to territorial authorities acknowledged the reality of the phenomenon, while expressing his growing conviction that the case involved forces that operated beyond conventional medical understanding. The physician's recommendation for expanded investigation by specialists in fields beyond traditional medicine reflected his recognition that the Millbrook incident might require expertise in areas that had previously been considered outside the realm of serious scientific inquiry, setting the stage for revelations that would challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of human consciousness and the boundaries between the known and unknown. The collection of individual testimonies gathered by Dr. Morrison during early November 1890 revealed the profound psychological impact of the collective memory loss on Millbrook's residents, as each person struggled to comprehend their participation in events they could not remember. The physician's systematic interviews documented not only the consistent pattern of amnesia, but also the emotional and psychological responses of individuals confronting the reality that 12 hours of their lives had been somehow erased from conscious recollection. These testimonies, preserved in Dr. Morrison's detailed notes, provide insight into the human cost of experiencing a phenomenon that challenged fundamental assumptions about personal identity and conscious awareness. Mayor Thomas Brennan's testimony reflected the particular burden faced by community leaders who found themselves unable to account for their actions during a period when their responsibilities should have required constant vigilance. The mayor described his growing anxiety about decisions that might have been made, orders that could have been given, and official duties that may have been performed during the missing hours without any record or memory of such activities. His testimony revealed the profound disorientation experienced by someone whose entire sense of professional competence and civic responsibility had been undermined by the inexplicable gap in his consciousness. Mrs. Eleanor Patterson, the town's schoolteacher, provided testimony that illuminated the particular challenges faced by those responsible for the care and education of children during the aftermath of the collective amnesia. Her account described the difficulty of maintaining normal classroom routines when both teacher and students shared the same bewildering experience of lost time, creating an atmosphere of mutual uncertainty that affected the educational process. Mrs. Patterson's observations of her students' behavior revealed subtle changes in their demeanor and academic performance that seemed to correlate with their shared experience of the missing hours. The testimony of railroad conductor James Whitfield, who had discovered the deserted depot on the morning of October 14th, provided an outsider's perspective on the immediate aftermath of the collective memory loss. His account described the eerie quality of a community that appeared normal in every physical respect, yet exhibited behavioral patterns that suggested profound disorientation among the residents. Whitfield's professional experience with frontier communities enabled him to recognize that Millbrook's condition represented something unprecedented in his extensive travels throughout the Western Territories. Dr. Morrison's interviews with the town's elderly residents revealed that the memory loss had affected individuals regardless of their previous mental acuity or health status, suggesting that the phenomenon operated independently of normal cognitive function. Elderly townspeople who had maintained sharp memories throughout their advanced years found themselves as completely unable to recall the missing hours as younger residents, indicating that the amnesia was not related to age-related cognitive decline or medical conditions that might affect memory formation or retention. The testimonies of Millbrook's mothers revealed particular distress regarding their inability to remember caring for their children during the missing hours, creating anxiety about potential neglect or harm that might have occurred without their conscious awareness. Several women described persistent worry about whether their infants had been fed, whether young children had been properly supervised, and whether family safety had been maintained during a period they could not remember. These maternal concerns reflected the broader community anxiety about actions taken and responsibilities fulfilled during the lost time. The testimony of Reverend Hayes provided insight into the spiritual and theological implications of the collective amnesia, as the pastor struggled to reconcile his religious understanding with an experience that seemed to challenge fundamental beliefs about human consciousness and divine providence. His account described his profound distress at discovering evidence of church use during the missing hours, including the possibility that religious services or ceremonies had been conducted without his memory or consent. The Reverend's theological training provided no framework for understanding a phenomenon that appeared to involve the suspension of conscious will and memory. Dr. Morrison's interviews with the town's merchants and business owners revealed economic concerns about transactions that might have been conducted during the missing hours without proper record-keeping or conscious oversight. Several shopkeepers described discovering subtle changes in their inventory that suggested goods had been purchased or exchanged during the lost time. Yet no one possessed memory of such transactions or could account for the apparent commercial activity. These economic implications added practical concerns to the broader mystery of the collective amnesia. The testimonies of Millbrook's younger adults revealed particular anxiety about personal relationships and social interactions that might have occurred during the missing hours without their conscious participation or memory. Several residents expressed concern about conversations that might have been held, promises that could have been made, or personal decisions that may have been taken during a period they could not remember. These social implications created interpersonal tensions as community members struggled to trust their relationships when 12 hours of shared experience had been erased from collective memory. The most disturbing testimonies emerged from residents who reported fragmentary impressions and dreamlike memories that seemed to relate to the missing hours, though they could not distinguish between actual experiences and subconscious fabrications. Dr. Morrison documented several accounts of individuals who described vague recollections of walking in darkness, voices without words, and gathering in places that seemed familiar yet strange. These partial memories, while providing no clear explanation for the collective amnesia, suggested that some level of consciousness might have been maintained during the missing hours, though in a form that prevented normal memory formation or retention. The physician's growing collection of testimonies revealed a community united by shared loss, yet divided by individual anxiety about actions taken and experiences endured during 12 hours that had somehow been erased from human recollection, preparing the way for even more disturbing discoveries that would emerge as the investigation continued. Dr. Morrison's systematic examination of Millbrook's physical environment during the second week of November 1890 revealed an extensive pattern of subtle alterations that provided tangible evidence of organized activity during the missing hours. The physician's methodical documentation of these changes, conducted with the assistance of several observant townspeople who had noticed discrepancies in their familiar surroundings, created a comprehensive record of modifications that suggested purposeful human activity despite the complete absence of conscious memory regarding such actions. These physical traces represented the only objective evidence of what had transpired during the 12 hours that had been erased from collective recollection. The examination of individual residences throughout Millbrook revealed consistent patterns of intrusion and rearrangement that indicated systematic visitation of virtually every home in the community during the missing hours. Dr. Morrison documented instances of furniture that had been moved and carefully replaced in slightly different positions, personal belongings that showed evidence of examination and handling, and household items that had been relocated within rooms according to no discernible pattern. The precision with which these alterations had been made suggested familiarity with each home's layout and contents. Yet no resident possessed any memory of conducting or authorizing such activities. The investigation of the town's commercial establishments revealed evidence of transactions and activities that had occurred without the knowledge or memory of the business owners, creating economic puzzles that added practical complications to the broader mystery. Dr. Morrison found records of goods that had been removed from inventories, money that had been exchanged according to no recognizable system, and services that appeared to have been provided despite the complete absence of conscious recollection by the merchants involved. The careful nature of these commercial activities suggested adherence to some form of organized plan or protocol that operated independently of normal business practices. The examination of Millbrook's church provided the most extensive evidence of organized activity during the missing hours, with multiple indicators suggesting that a significant gathering or ceremony had taken place within the sacred space. Dr. Morrison documented the systematic rearrangement of pews, the use of candles and religious artifacts, and the apparent performance of some form of service or ritual that had left unmistakable traces despite Reverend Hayes's complete inability to remember conducting any such activity. The church's condition suggested that the entire community had participated in some form of collective religious observance during the lost time. The physician's investigation of the town cemetery revealed the most disturbing physical evidence, with clear indications that multiple graves had been opened and carefully restored during the missing hours. Dr. Morrison's examination revealed subtle signs of excavation at 17 different burial sites, though the graves had been meticulously returned to their original condition with a precision that suggested both expertise and reverence for the deceased. The implications of this discovery, combined with the evidence of church use, suggested that whatever had occurred during the missing hours involved activities related to death, burial, and possibly communication with the deceased. The examination of Millbrook's livestock and domestic animals provided additional evidence of unusual activity during the lost hours, with multiple indicators suggesting that the animals had been systematically moved, cared for, and managed according to some organized plan. Dr. Morrison documented instances of cattle that had been relocated between pastures, horses that showed evidence of having been ridden during the night, and domestic animals that had been fed and watered despite their owners' inability to remember performing such tasks. The animals' continued agitation and nervous behavior suggested that their experiences during the missing hours had been traumatic or unusual. The investigation of the town's mechanical and technological systems revealed anomalies that suggested deliberate manipulation during the missing hours, though the purpose of such activities remained unclear. Dr. Morrison found evidence that the railroad depot's telegraph equipment had been operated during the lost time, though no messages had been transmitted or received according to official records. Clocks throughout the community had been stopped and reset according to no recognizable pattern, while the town's water pumps and mechanical systems showed evidence of operation and maintenance that no one could remember performing. The physician's examination of natural and environmental evidence provided additional clues about activities that had occurred during the missing hours, though these traces raised more questions than they answered. Dr. Morrison documented unusual patterns of foot traffic throughout the town, with paths worn in grass and soil that suggested organized movement of large groups of people during the night. The weather station's missing meteorological data for the lost hours prevented determination of environmental conditions, yet the physical evidence suggested that significant outdoor activity had taken place regardless of weather conditions. The most puzzling aspect of the physical evidence was its systematic nature, which suggested that whatever had occurred during the missing hours had been conducted according to some form of organized plan or protocol that involved the entire community. Dr. Morrison's documentation revealed that virtually every building, business and residence in Millbrook had been affected by the mysterious activities, yet the careful nature of the alterations indicated respect for property and attention to detail that seemed inconsistent with random or chaotic behavior. The evidence suggested conscious, purposeful activity conducted by individuals who possessed intimate knowledge of the community, yet operated without leaving any trace in human memory. The compilation of physical evidence created a comprehensive picture of a community that had somehow participated in extensive, organized activities during 12 hours that had been completely erased from conscious recollection. Dr. Morrison's systematic documentation revealed the scope and complexity of whatever had transpired during the missing hours, yet provided no explanation for the mechanism by which an entire population could conduct such activities without retaining any memory of their participation. The physical traces represented tangible proof that the collective amnesia was not simply a psychological phenomenon, but was associated with real events that had left unmistakable evidence throughout Millbrook, setting the stage for even more disturbing discoveries that would challenge fundamental assumptions about the nature of human consciousness and the boundaries between the known and unknown. The Wyoming territorial government's response to Dr. Morrison's preliminary reports revealed the broader implications of the Millbrook incident for territorial administration and frontier governance. Governor Francis Warren's correspondence, preserved in territorial archives, documents the challenge faced by officials attempting to address a phenomenon that defied conventional administrative protocols while maintaining public confidence in territorial authority. The governor's initial skepticism regarding the reports gradually gave way to concern as additional evidence confirmed the reality of the collective amnesia, forcing territorial officials to confront questions about jurisdiction and responsibility for events that appeared to exist beyond normal legal and administrative frameworks. The Territorial Attorney General's legal analysis of the Millbrook situation revealed the unprecedented challenges posed by a case involving an entire community's inability to remember their actions during a specific time period. Legal memoranda from November 1890 document discussions about the validity of contracts, the reliability of witness testimony, and the enforceability of laws when an entire population could not account for 12 hours of their existence. The legal implications extended beyond Millbrook to encompass broader questions about the nature of legal responsibility and the foundations of frontier justice in cases that challenged fundamental assumptions about human consciousness and memory. The Territorial Medical Board's review of Dr. Morrison's findings prompted consultation with medical experts from Eastern institutions as frontier physicians sought guidance for addressing a phenomenon that exceeded their training and experience. Correspondence between territorial medical officials and specialists in Denver, Chicago, and New York revealed the unprecedented nature of the case within documented medical literature. The absence of comparable cases in medical journals and textbooks left territorial physicians without established protocols for investigation or treatment, forcing them to develop new approaches to a condition that appeared to exist beyond the boundaries of contemporary medical knowledge. The territorial militia's involvement in the Millbrook investigation reflected official concern about potential security implications of the collective amnesia, as military authorities considered the possibility that the incident might represent some form of attack or threat to territorial stability. Military reports from late November 1890 document the deployment of a small detachment to Millbrook to assess the situation and provide security during the ongoing investigation. The soldiers' observations, recorded in official dispatches, confirmed the reality of the phenomenon while adding military perspectives to the growing body of evidence about the mysterious events. The territorial press's coverage of the Millbrook incident revealed the challenge of reporting on events that defied rational explanation while maintaining journalistic credibility. Newspaper accounts from the Cheyenne Daily Leader and other territorial publications struggled to present the facts of the case without sensationalizing phenomena that seemed to belong more to folklore than legitimate news reporting. The press coverage reflected broader public fascination with the mystery, while revealing the difficulty of communicating information about events that challenged conventional understanding of reality. The territorial legislature's discussions about the Millbrook case, documented in session minutes from December 1890, revealed the political implications of a phenomenon that raised questions about the territorial government's ability to protect and serve its citizens. Legislative debates addressed funding for continued investigation, the establishment of protocols for similar incidents, and the broader question of territorial responsibility for events that appeared to exist beyond normal governmental authority. The discussions reflected the challenge faced by frontier politicians attempting to address unprecedented situations while maintaining public confidence in territorial institutions. The Territorial Surveyor's examination of Millbrook and its surrounding area, conducted at the request of territorial officials, provided additional evidence that the mysterious events had been confined to the town's boundaries with remarkable precision. Surveying reports documented that the collective amnesia had affected only those individuals who had been within Millbrook's incorporated limits during the missing hours, while travelers and residents of nearby ranches remained unaffected. This geographic specificity suggested that whatever had caused the memory loss operated according to defined boundaries that corresponded to human administrative divisions rather than natural geographical features. The territorial Indian agent's consultation with local tribal representatives revealed that Native American communities in the region possessed no knowledge of events that might explain the Millbrook incident, though several tribal elders expressed familiarity with similar phenomena from traditional oral histories. These consultations, documented in official reports, suggested that the collective amnesia might represent a recurring phenomenon that had affected frontier communities in the past, though such incidents had been dismissed as folklore rather than documented historical events. The tribal perspectives provided cultural context for understanding the incident within broader patterns of unexplained phenomena. The Territorial Telegraph System's investigation of communication records revealed anomalies that correlated with the timing of the Millbrook incident, providing additional evidence of unusual activity during the missing hours. Telegraph operators reported equipment malfunctions and signal disruptions that had occurred throughout southeastern Wyoming during the night of October 13th. Though these technical problems had been attributed to weather conditions rather than connected to the memory loss phenomenon. The correlation between communication disruptions and the collective amnesia suggested that the incident might have involved forces capable of affecting both human consciousness and mechanical systems. The territorial government's final assessment of the Millbrook case, compiled in December 1890, acknowledged the reality of the phenomenon while admitting the limitations of contemporary administrative and scientific resources for understanding or addressing such incidents. Official recommendations included continued monitoring of the affected community, establishment of protocols for investigating similar cases, and consultation with federal authorities about the broader implications of phenomena that challenged territorial jurisdiction and authority. The territorial response revealed the profound challenge faced by frontier governments attempting to maintain order and provide protection in a region where the boundaries between the known and unknown remained undefined, setting the stage for federal involvement that would bring additional resources and expertise to bear upon a mystery that had already challenged every assumption about the nature of human consciousness and the limits of governmental authority. The arrival of federal investigators in Millbrook during the first week of December 1890 marked a significant escalation in the official response to the collective amnesia incident, as Washington authorities recognized the potential implications of a phenomenon that challenged fundamental assumptions about human consciousness and national security. The federal team, led by Dr. Nathaniel Blackwood of the Smithsonian Institution, and accompanied by representatives from the War Department and the newly established Bureau of Investigation, brought advanced scientific equipment and investigative resources that exceeded anything available to territorial authorities. Their comprehensive examination of the case would reveal additional layers of complexity, while raising disturbing questions about the nature and origin of the forces responsible for the missing hours. Dr. Blackwood's scientific analysis of the Millbrook incident employed methodologies that represented the cutting edge of 1890s investigative science, including photographic documentation, chemical analysis of soil and environmental samples, and systematic measurement of atmospheric and electromagnetic conditions throughout the affected area. His preliminary findings, transmitted to Washington via encrypted telegraph, confirmed the accuracy of Dr. Morrison's observations, while adding new dimensions to the mystery through the application of advanced scientific instrumentation. The federal investigation's resources enabled examination of evidence that had been beyond the capabilities of territorial authorities. The War Department's security assessment of the Millbrook case reflected federal concern about potential military implications of a phenomenon capable of affecting the consciousness and memory of an entire population. Military investigators examined the possibility that the incident might represent some form of experimental weapon or foreign attack designed to incapacitate American communities through manipulation of human consciousness. Their investigation, while finding no evidence of hostile action, revealed the profound security implications of phenomena that could render entire populations unable to remember their own actions or defend against unknown threats. The Bureau of Investigation's criminal analysis of the Millbrook incident focused on determining whether the collective amnesia might have been used to conceal illegal activities or to facilitate crimes that would remain undetected due to the absence of witnesses with reliable memories. Federal investigators examined evidence of the systematic intrusions into homes and businesses, the unexplained cemetery disturbances, and the apparent religious ceremony conducted without conscious participation. Their investigation revealed no evidence of criminal intent, yet the systematic nature of the activities suggested organization and purpose that transcended random or accidental occurrence. Dr. Blackwood's interviews with Millbrook residents, conducted using advanced psychological assessment techniques developed by European researchers, revealed subtle patterns in the collective amnesia that had escaped previous investigation. The federal scientists' systematic analysis identified variations in the memory loss that correlated with individual characteristics such as age, health status, and psychological disposition, suggesting that the phenomenon might have affected different people in slightly different ways. These variations provided clues about the mechanism of the memory loss, while raising questions about the selective nature of whatever force had caused the collective amnesia. The federal investigation's examination of environmental factors revealed anomalies in atmospheric and electromagnetic conditions that had occurred throughout the region during the night of October 13th, providing potential scientific explanations for the mysterious events. Dr. Blackwood's instruments detected residual electromagnetic signatures that differed from normal atmospheric conditions, while soil and water samples revealed trace elements that had no apparent natural source. These environmental anomalies suggested that the Millbrook incident might have been associated with natural or artificial phenomena that operated through manipulation of physical forces affecting human consciousness. The Smithsonian Institution's anthropological analysis of the case revealed parallels between the Millbrook incident and similar phenomena reported in folklore and historical accounts from various cultures throughout human history. Dr. Blackwood's research team identified documented cases of collective amnesia, mass psychological episodes, and unexplained community-wide experiences that shared characteristics with the Wyoming incident. These historical parallels suggested that the Millbrook case might represent a recurring phenomenon that had affected human communities throughout history, though such incidents had typically been dismissed as superstition rather than subjected to scientific investigation. The federal team's technological analysis revealed that the incident had affected mechanical and electrical systems throughout Millbrook in ways that correlated with the human memory loss, suggesting that whatever force had caused the amnesia operated through manipulation of both biological and technological systems. Dr. Blackwood's examination of stopped clocks, disrupted telegraph equipment, and malfunctioning mechanical devices revealed patterns of interference that indicated exposure to unknown forms of energy or radiation. The simultaneous effect on human consciousness and mechanical systems suggested a phenomenon that operated according to principles not yet understood by contemporary science. The federal investigation's most significant discovery emerged from analysis of the systematic activities that had occurred during the missing hours, revealing evidence of organization and purpose that suggested conscious direction rather than random or instinctive behavior. Dr. Blackwood's team documented patterns in the cemetery disturbances, church activities, and home intrusions that indicated adherence to some form of protocol or plan that had been executed with remarkable precision despite the complete absence of conscious memory. The systematic nature of these activities suggested that whatever had caused the amnesia had also provided alternative forms of guidance or control over human behavior. The federal government's classified assessment of the Millbrook case, completed in January 1891, acknowledged the reality of the phenomenon while recommending continued monitoring and research into similar incidents. The classified report, declassified only in 1954, revealed federal recognition that the case represented evidence of forces or phenomena that exceeded contemporary scientific understanding while posing potential implications for national security and public safety. The federal investigation's conclusion that the Millbrook incident represented a genuine mystery requiring ongoing study established precedent for government involvement in cases that challenge conventional understanding of reality, setting the stage for the final phase of investigation that would attempt to determine the ultimate fate of the missing hours and the forces responsible for their erasure from human memory. Dr. Blackwood's comprehensive scientific analysis of the Millbrook phenomenon, conducted throughout December 1890 and January 1891, employed the most advanced investigative methodologies available to contemporary science in an attempt to understand the mechanism responsible for the collective amnesia. The Smithsonian scientists' systematic approach included detailed examination of atmospheric conditions, electromagnetic measurements, chemical analysis of environmental samples, and psychological assessment of affected individuals using experimental techniques developed by European researchers. His findings, documented in a classified report submitted to federal authorities, revealed evidence of forces that operated according to principles unknown to 1890s scientific understanding. The electromagnetic analysis conducted by Dr. Blackwood's team revealed persistent anomalies in the electrical and magnetic fields surrounding Millbrook that differed significantly from normal atmospheric conditions throughout the region. Specialized instruments detected residual electromagnetic signatures that suggested exposure to intense energy fields during the night of October 13th, though the source and nature of these fields remained beyond the explanatory power of contemporary physics. The electromagnetic anomalies appeared to be concentrated within the town's boundaries, correlating precisely with the geographic limits of the collective amnesia and suggesting a causal relationship between the energy fields and the memory loss. The chemical analysis of soil, water, and atmospheric samples collected throughout Millbrook revealed the presence of trace elements and compounds that had no apparent natural source within the Wyoming territory. Dr. Blackwood's laboratory examination identified unusual mineral deposits, atmospheric particles, and chemical signatures that suggested exposure to materials or processes unknown to contemporary chemistry. These chemical anomalies appeared to be distributed throughout the affected area in patterns that correlated with the locations where the most extensive physical evidence of mysterious activities had been discovered. The psychological assessment of Millbrook residents using experimental techniques developed by European researchers revealed subtle variations in the collective amnesia that provided clues about the mechanism of memory loss. Dr. Blackwood's systematic testing identified differences in the depth and completeness of memory erasure that correlated with individual characteristics such as age, health status, and psychological disposition. Children and elderly residents showed slightly different patterns of memory loss compared to healthy adults, suggesting that the phenomenon affected human consciousness through biological mechanisms that varied according to individual physiological conditions. The neurological examination of selected Millbrook residents, conducted using primitive but innovative techniques for assessing brain function, revealed evidence of temporary alterations in neural activity that had occurred during the missing hours. Dr. Blackwood's experimental procedures detected residual changes in brain chemistry and electrical activity that suggested exposure to influences capable of modifying normal neurological function. These neurological anomalies provided the first direct evidence that the collective amnesia had resulted from physical alterations to brain function rather than purely psychological factors. The atmospheric analysis conducted throughout the investigation period revealed ongoing environmental anomalies that suggested the Millbrook incident had created lasting changes in local atmospheric conditions. Dr. Blackwood's instruments detected unusual air pressure variations, temperature fluctuations, and atmospheric electrical activity that differed from normal weather patterns throughout southeastern Wyoming. These persistent atmospheric anomalies suggested that whatever had caused the collective amnesia had also created environmental changes that continued to affect the area months after the original incident. The geological survey of Millbrook and its surrounding area revealed subtle but measurable changes in local magnetic fields and geological formations that appeared to have occurred during the night of October 13th. Dr. Blackwood's team documented slight shifts in magnetic declination, minor alterations in underground water flow patterns, and changes in soil composition that suggested exposure to forces capable of affecting the Earth's geological structure. These geological changes provided additional evidence that the incident had involved phenomena operating on a scale that transcended purely human or biological effects. The astronomical analysis of celestial conditions during the night of October 13th revealed unusual solar and planetary alignments that might have contributed to the creation of conditions conducive to the mysterious phenomenon. Dr. Blackwood's calculations identified rare astronomical configurations that occurred during the missing hours, including solar magnetic field variations and planetary gravitational effects that might have influenced terrestrial electromagnetic conditions. While these astronomical factors could not fully explain the collective amnesia, they suggested that natural cosmic forces might have played a role in creating the conditions necessary for the incident. The comparative analysis of historical records revealed evidence of similar incidents that had occurred throughout human history, though such cases had typically been dismissed as folklore or misunderstood as natural disasters. Dr. Blackwood's research identified documented accounts of collective amnesia, mass psychological episodes, and unexplained community-wide experiences from various cultures and time periods that shared characteristics with the Millbrook case. These historical parallels suggested that the Wyoming incident might represent a recurring phenomenon that had affected human communities throughout history, though the lack of scientific investigation had prevented understanding of its true nature. The theoretical framework developed by Dr. Blackwood to explain the Millbrook phenomenon proposed that the collective amnesia had resulted from exposure to unknown forms of energy or radiation that affected both human consciousness and mechanical systems through manipulation of electromagnetic fields. His hypothesis suggested that natural or artificial forces had created conditions that temporarily altered the normal function of human memory formation, while simultaneously affecting electrical and mechanical devices throughout the community. This theoretical model, while speculative, provided the first scientific framework for understanding phenomena that challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between consciousness, memory, and physical reality. Dr. Blackwood's final scientific assessment of the Millbrook case, completed in February 1891, acknowledged the limitations of contemporary science for fully understanding the phenomenon while establishing a foundation for future research into similar incidents. His classified report recommended continued monitoring of the affected area, development of new investigative techniques for studying consciousness-related anomalies, and establishment of protocols for responding to similar cases that might occur in the future. The scientific analysis had revealed evidence of forces that operated according to principles unknown to 1890s understanding, yet had provided enough information to recognize that the Millbrook incident represented a genuine scientific mystery requiring ongoing investigation and research. The final assessment of the Millbrook incident, compiled by federal authorities in March 1891, acknowledged that despite months of intensive investigation by territorial, federal, and scientific personnel, the fundamental mystery of the collective amnesia remained unsolved. Dr. Blackwood's comprehensive scientific analysis had documented extensive evidence of unusual phenomena, while failing to identify the ultimate cause or mechanism responsible for erasing 12 hours from the memory of an entire community. The case was officially classified as an unexplained incident requiring ongoing monitoring, though active investigation was suspended due to the absence of additional leads or evidence that might advance understanding of the phenomenon. The long-term effects on Millbrook's residents became apparent during the spring of 1891 as the community struggled to rebuild normal social and economic relationships in the aftermath of their shared experience of lost time. Dr. Morrison's follow-up medical examinations revealed persistent psychological effects among many townspeople, including anxiety about memory reliability, difficulty trusting their own perceptions, and ongoing concern about actions they might have taken during the missing hours. The collective trauma of experiencing unexplained amnesia had created lasting changes in the community's social dynamics and individual psychological well-being. The economic impact of the incident extended beyond the immediate disruption caused by the memory loss to encompass longer-term effects on Millbrook's commercial and agricultural activities. Several businesses never fully recovered from the uncertainty created by transactions and activities that had occurred without conscious memory, while some residents chose to relocate to other communities rather than continue living in a place associated with inexplicable phenomena. The Union Pacific Railroad's decision to reduce service to Millbrook reflected broader concerns about the reliability and safety of a community that had experienced such unprecedented events. The religious and spiritual implications of the collective amnesia continued to affect Millbrook's residents long after the incident itself, as many struggled to reconcile their faith with an experience that challenged fundamental beliefs about consciousness, free will, and divine providence. Reverend Hayes's departure from the community in June 1891 reflected the profound theological questions raised by evidence of religious activities conducted without conscious participation or memory. The church's eventual closure symbolized the community's ongoing struggle to understand events that seemed to exist beyond the boundaries of conventional religious explanation. The scientific legacy of the Millbrook case influenced the development of new research methodologies and theoretical frameworks for investigating phenomena that challenged conventional understanding of human consciousness and memory. Dr. Blackwood's innovative investigative techniques and theoretical proposals contributed to emerging fields of study that would eventually evolve into modern neuroscience and psychology. The case established precedent for scientific investigation of anomalous phenomena while demonstrating the limitations of contemporary knowledge for understanding complex interactions between consciousness, memory, and physical reality. The government's response to the Millbrook incident established protocols and procedures for investigating similar cases that would influence federal approaches to unexplained phenomena throughout the following decades. The classified nature of much of the investigation reflected official recognition that such incidents posed potential implications for national security and public safety that required careful management and ongoing monitoring. The establishment of specialized investigative units within federal agencies traced its origins to lessons learned during the Millbrook investigation. The historical documentation of the case, preserved in various archives and collections, provided future researchers with comprehensive records of an incident that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of human experience and the boundaries of scientific understanding. The detailed testimonies, scientific measurements, and investigative reports created an unprecedented database of information about collective amnesia and related phenomena that would inform research for generations. The case became a landmark in the documentation of unexplained events that defied conventional explanation. The broader implications of the Millbrook incident extended beyond the specific community to encompass questions about the nature of consciousness, memory, and reality that would continue to challenge scientists and philosophers throughout the following century. The case demonstrated that human experience might include phenomena that operated according to principles unknown to contemporary science, suggesting that the boundaries between the known and unknown remained far more fluid than generally acknowledged. The incident's challenge to fundamental assumptions about consciousness and memory contributed to evolving understanding of the complexity of human experience. The ultimate fate of the 12 missing hours remained unknown despite extensive investigation, leaving the central mystery of the Millbrook incident unresolved. The evidence suggested that an entire community had participated in organized activities during a period they could not remember. Yet the purpose, nature, and significance of these activities remained beyond human understanding. The systematic nature of the mysterious events suggested conscious direction and purpose, yet the source and intent of such direction remained as mysterious as the memory loss itself. The Millbrook case entered historical record as one of the most thoroughly documented yet ultimately inexplicable incidents in American frontier history, representing a phenomenon that challenged every attempt at rational explanation while leaving behind extensive evidence of its reality. The community's experience of collective amnesia served as a reminder that human understanding of consciousness, memory, and reality remained incomplete despite scientific advances and investigative sophistication. The case stood as testament to the persistence of mystery in human experience, suggesting that some phenomena might forever remain beyond the reach of conventional understanding. leaving future generations to grapple with questions about the nature of existence that had been raised but never answered by the events of October 13th, 1890. In a small Wyoming town where an entire community had somehow lost 12 hours of their lives without ever discovering what had happened during that time or why their memories of those crucial hours had been so completely and mysteriously erased from human recollection. If you liked this story, leave a like and subscribe to our channel.